Good morning, Trooper.
Good morning, sir.
Your earliest involvement in this case was on February 1st of 2022?
That's correct.
You ended up, and by the way, at that time you were a trooper assigned to the Crime Scene Services section?
That's correct.
And that was in which town in Massachusetts?
Where I was assigned, sir?
Yes.
Maynard.
Maynard, okay. About a year later, you actually joined the Norfolk CPAC unit, or the Norfolk Detectives Unit, correct?
That's correct.
And when you joined the Norfolk CPAC unit, Lieutenant Brian Tully was the supervisor of that unit, was he not?
Yes, he was.
You are still with that unit, correct?
That's correct.
So you've been there for approximately 2 years, a little bit more than 2 years.
That's correct.
And so you were there when Lieutenant Tully was removed as the supervisor of that unit, correct?
That's sustained, and folks should to disregard that.
Now, if I could request an instruction.
Jurors, pay no attention to that question or answer. That is not properly before you with this witness.
Is Lieutenant Tully still the supervisor of that unit?
Yes.
I'm going to see you at sidebar for just a minute.
February 1st of 2022, you learned that Michael Proctor had called your unit, resulting in your involvement in this case on that date, correct?
That's right.
And Michael Proctor had requested that you go to the Canton Police Station?
That's correct.
At the time, were you aware that the Canton Police Station, or the Canton Police Department, I should say, had a conflict of interest with this investigation?
Objection.
Rephrase it. Rephrase it.
Well, were you aware, when you were called out on this case, that John O'Keefe had been found mortally wounded on Brian Albert's lawn?
I was advised of that fact upon my arrival.
Okay. And you were advised of the fact that Brian Albert's brother was a Canton police detective?
I did not know that.
All right. Still, it was the Canton Police Station and not a state police barracks where Michael Proctor instructed you to go, correct?
That's right.
Was he there before you, or did you arrive there before him?
He was there before me.
When you got there, where did you see Michael Proctor within the Canton Police Department?
Inside the garage bay.
And is that also called a sally port?
Yes.
And when you got there, was Michael Proctor the one to direct you to the Lexus SUV?
Yes.
And when you got there on February 1st, that was the first time that you laid eyes on that vehicle, correct?
Yes, it is.
There was no other investigator from the State Police Detectives Unit or the CPAC unit there with the Lexus SUV except for Michael Proctor, correct?
There were other investigators from the Norfolk District Attorney's Office present that morning.
In any case, you had no personal knowledge prior to your arrival of how long Michael Proctor had been with that SUV before you got there, correct?
That's right.
You have no personal knowledge about whether anyone was monitoring Michael Proctor while he was near the vehicle before you got there?
That's correct.
And before you got there, you had no idea how much access Michael Proctor had to that vehicle, right?
Correct.
Your assignment was to take photographs and to process the passenger's compartment in particular for fingerprints.
Correct.
And you did that.
Yes, I did.
Bless you. About a year and a half after that, on July 18th of 2023, you participated in this investigation again, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And that was because, in part, you had now joined the Norfolk CPAC unit, correct?
Correct.
And you participated in an interview of Colin Albert at the Norfolk DA's office, right?
That's right.
You knew at the time that Colin Albert was the nephew of the homeowner, Brian Albert?
Objection.
I'll allow that. Did you know that at the time?
Could you rephrase the question?
Sure. At the time that you were called in for this interview and told that you would be participating in an interview of Colin Albert, you knew that he was Brian Albert's nephew, correct?
I was advised that prior to the interview, yes.
You conducted that interview along with Michael Proctor, correct?
Correct.
At the time, Michael Proctor was a state trooper in that unit, correct?
Yes, he was.
And you knew he was also the lead investigator on the case, correct?
He was the case officer, yes.
At the time of that interview on July 18th, before you began questioning of Colin Albert, had Michael Proctor revealed to you his connections with the Albert family?
Objection.
Sustained.
Will you approach?
Go on to the next area and see if you can come back.
Did Michael Proctor reveal to you that he and Kevin Albert had socialized together by drinking alcohol in his cruiser?
Sustained, and jurors, I'm going to ask you to strike that question. Disregard.
I need to be heard at sidebar.
I will hear you.
Sir, when you went with Michael Proctor to interview Colin Albert, you knew that the case originated on January 29th of 2022?
I was aware of that.
And the date that you conducted that interview was July 18th of 2023?
That's correct.
Did you ever ask Michael Proctor why he waited a year and a half to interview Colin Albert?
I did not.
Once that interview was concluded, one of the two of you had to write a report to document what Colin Albert had told you, correct?
That's correct.
And Michael Proctor, as the lead investigator, was the one to write the report, correct?
Michael Proctor wrote that report.
You did not write it.
Correct.
He chose the language to use in that report, correct?
Correct.
And you weren't standing over him while he was typing it up, correct?
Correct.
And he wrote that report to his supervisor without running every word by you, correct?
That's correct.
Did you ever review that report to check whether it was accurate?
Not before it was published.
And the only other thing I have for you, sir, is you were called to photograph evidence on February 1st. Were you ever asked to go to 34 Fairview Road on February 8th to photograph and document evidence supposedly found on that day?
No, I was not.
Were you ever asked to go to 34 Fairview Road to document any evidence on February 10th?
No, I wasn't.
How about February 11th?
No, sir.
And then on February 18th, nearly 3 weeks after January 29th, did anybody contact you to ask you to come out and photograph and document evidence that was supposedly found 3 weeks later?
Ask it differently, Mr.
Yes.
Yannetti.
Were you called out to 34 Fairview Road on February 18th of 2022 to photograph and document anything?
February 1st was the only date I was called to 34 Fairview, sir.
So the answer to my question is no, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any follow-up, Mr. Lally?
No redirection.
Sorry?
No redirection.
Okay, thank you. All right, you're all set. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, folks.
Next witness, please.
Yes, Your Honor. The Commonwealth called Evan Brent to the stand.
Okay.